The Motivational Mindset Podcast with Switch Motivation.
Hello, my name's Richard Knight and welcome to episode 8 of the Motivational Mindset Podcast. This week I'm speaking to Steve Jones from Skills for Business. He's a global motivational and leadership trainer, passionate about making people and businesses outstanding. He's an international keynote speaker and a published author. Enjoy!
So my background was health and fitness management. So I was with Fitness First PLC when we started one club in Bournemouth on the south coast. Within 7 years, we had got global domination. So we'd gone through the AIM, the full listing. We were opening a club a week at 1.2 worldwide. So I experienced fast growth and all its nightmares and all its glories. And I left when the city got hold of it because it suddenly changed overnight to being a much more less of an entrepreneurial business and more of just a reporting process, keeping the city happy. Yeah. So I exited, but also I wanted to do some other stuff anyway. So it fitted. So I took a bit of time out, recovered from being completely worn out and tired. And then I went on to start coaching a few companies with their growth. And that was great. And then I got approached by an international coaching organisation called Sherlaws that specialised in SME fast growth. They came over to the UK from Australia. I was the first member in after their partnership. And I looked at all the tools, methodologies and techniques. And to be honest with you, it mapped perfectly my fitness first journey. So I had both the experience plus the toolkit. But about 3 years in, we were working with fast growth clients. It was really good fun. But one of the things I started to notice was you can't really grow an organisation without attracting and keeping your talent. So I exited really and started to look at leadership issues, motivational issues. I didn't know it was called employee engagement at the time, but employee engagement. And whilst I was doing that, the government it's about 2010, the government was starting to look at employee engagement in the UK because it was so poor. Only 1 in 3 people were going to work were actually engaged. So we had 2/3 of the population disengaged. So they invited me up to London and I was invited to co-chair the steering committee to look at companies that were doing it well and what they were doing differently. And we kind of found four key themes, which was a clear strategy, engaging managers, the ability to listen to your people and your values. So basically I took those 4 enablers and I exited and because no one was doing anything with the information we were finding. So I thought that was a bit frustrating. So I built a course and I went down to the Vitality Stadium in the home of Bournemouth Football Club and did a presentation to a group of business owners. And in the room was there's a couple of businesses that actually wanted me to work with them. So I spent a year working with the philosophies that I'd learned from the engagement success and my experience with Fitness First. And we transformed their businesses to the business owners falling back in love rather than falling out of love. To the point where they were so attractive, they both got sold very quickly, which was interesting. And that kind of constituted me writing Mapping Motivations for Engagement with James Sale, which you're probably aware of. I talked about the experiences there, and then it was because Routledge are an academic organisation, we had to academicise it, which is where James came in because I haven't got any academic acumen whatsoever. So we wrote that book basically to do that. And so now I spend my time really with organisations that are trying to harness the full potential capabilities of their people, but not really getting it, can't really do it, don't understand how to do it. So I'm always knocking. I get invited to all sorts of organisations by other people. So I'm not going to bother going to see them because they just don't get it. I only want to work with the organisations that get it. And so basically that's what's happened, and it's evolved since then. So I've written 3 books now. The last book I've written is How to Become an Employer of Choice, and I use a wheel of engagement to enable people to understand the 12 things that a business needs in order to actually be an employer of choice. And they do the quiz, which is the score out quiz, and it takes 2 minutes. And then the book, so they do that, and it's in the book, and they do that, and then they look at their results, and then they go to the chapter necessary they need to read, or they read the whole book. And it's about a 2-hour read. It's a very small, sharp, very to the point book, basically. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Yes, and I like doing lots of presentations. So I've been, I came up to Swindon, as you know. I was in Liverpool the other day. We had 250 people who were EOTs, which are employee ownership trusts. So this was back just actually November last year. I was asked to speak at this conference. There was 800 attending. I was going to be one of 4 breakout rooms. And then they rang me and said, look, we've got a problem. We've got 800 people coming and 250 people want to see you talk about that topic. So we put me in the main plenary. So that was fascinating. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm doing a bit of stuff with the Help to Grow program, running some of their events for them. So keeping busy, public speaking and working with clients, I think. And that's my story.
Yeah,
really.
fantastic. Thank you. I mean, loads of experience there, which is fantastic to hear about. And your engagement wheel, I've seen that when your presentation, and I had a look at that. It'd be great to talk a little bit more about that in later on down a conversation. But the first thing I picked up on was when you were talking about that fitness first side of things, and you being involved in that, and it growing, but then it changing, and you mentioned being worn out and tired.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be really interesting to just explore that a little bit in terms of when that was happening to you at the time. You're obviously doing lots and lots. How aware were you that it was around that sort of motivational mindset that you had, or the motivational impact, or was it just I've had enough of that and off I go? How aware were you of the motivational aspect back then?
It's really strange you asked that question, because I had no idea it was linked to motivation. But obviously, in hindsight, I know it's absolutely linked to motivation. I was just feeling drained by lunchtime. I was getting to lunchtime, and I was thinking, this is a nightmare. Because in the old days, we had to use voicemail. Don't know if you remember voicemail. So I'd get to the end of the day, and I'd have about 90 voicemails to get through and listen to. And then my head off was because they were scared of the city. Everybody wanted to keep their jobs. So you had the same report going to 40 different people. And you're trying to travel the country. Your salespeople are doing their sales, and they can't do their sales because every 15 minutes we have to get the numbers. It just became just a bloody nightmare of reporting.
Yeah.
And I just fell out of love with it. And I always said to myself, when I was 23, I said to myself, this is my rule. I spend most of my life sleeping, the rest of it working, and I have some social time. So whatever I do in the workspace, I need to enjoy. And I had to test that, because I love the fitness industry and I didn't want to leave it, but it just drove me out. It drove me out, literally, because I became that lowly motivated, highly skilled individual we talk about. I had no idea it was linked to motivation at the time. I just was not having fun. I was not enjoying it.
Yeah.
Reporting daily, constantly was not me. I'm a free spirit, as we know. So trying to tie me down and tell me what to do and remove all my entrepreneurial spirit was kind of like the death of me. So and they were offering me more shares to stay, and I was going, no, I'm not going there.
So interesting when you think about that sort of stuff, and whether that's what organizations still do, that offering you more shares, offering you the money. Well, that's all right though, isn't it? Giving you the cash, that's motivation, isn't it? And that seems to be pretty prevalent back in the day. Are we still finding that now in terms of organizations you're working with, that they're still trying to sort of motivate via the bucks?
It's definitely still there, isn't it? I think what happens with money is you have to pay people enough to take money off the table. That's the key. If they're underpaid, then they do want more money, and they've got cost of living to consider. So you have to consider paying them enough to take money off the table. But you can be smart if you have an organisation people love to work with. And I'm down south, and some of the people here can travel to London and get London wages. So let's say with you in where you are, I guess they can come along the motorway, the M4, and be in London. So you've got to offer something else. You've got to offer a lifestyle, a company that you want to work for. You've got to motivate them in different ways, and they'll probably be joining you for more lifestyle, for less travel, because they're at a stage of their life where they're not hungry for success. They're hungry for actually self-actualization. So you've got different things, through the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the motivational maps. You can kind of see, I reckon people get to about the age of 45, 50, and then they go, I need to do something for myself now. I've done it for everybody else. I need it for myself now. And I think, you go through 3 or 4 phases in your life. I think when you start a job, you're very dependent. Therefore, you need the business to look after you. Then you're independent, so you can work out how you can run what you do within the organization, which is what I did at Fitness First. But then there comes a point where, do you know what? I'm fulfilling someone else's dream, and I want to fulfill my own dream now. So I'm going to get out. And that's about 45, 50, sometimes earlier. Okay. But that's my take on it. And then you want life on your terms. and family's more important and other things kick in. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's my thinking.
Yeah, it's something that I've had conversations with on the podcast already with other people. Sally Earnshaw, who was talking about exactly that. People getting to a certain age where actually instead of back in the day where you just go, okay, time to retire and then do not a lot. It actually people are stepping up and going, no, 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 time to actually do something completely different and do it for me, which is the great thing. I really do. I think that's something that people are realizing you can do now. That age isn't that isn't a big barrier in terms of stopping doing things. So also going back to your point around your fitness side of things, and you really enjoying your fitness, and it didn't fit in terms of the way the company was going. Is fitness still something that motivates you now that you do outside of a work environment? How does that work from your motivators?
Well, I did fall into a bit of a trap, Richard, because when I started working with Sherlaws, it was full on, and I wasn't exercising, and I wasn't functioning properly. So and I put a bit of weight on, and I went up to, I'm 11, just under 12 stone. And I went up to 13 and a half. It was just ridiculous. And I looked like a bloated coach. So I wasn't very happy with it at all. And it crept up on me, but I was doing long hours and, thriving to succeed and all that kind of stuff. And so I made a decision then, actually, I'm going to get fit. So now I'm very clear on my diet and very clear on how I exercise, how often I exercise. So I got back to being, and I operate much better. It's really good for my mental health to exercise because it makes me feel good, and I have lots more energy, and I'm more sustainable when I'm fit.
Yeah, yeah, it's something we come across a lot with. Again, people I've spoken to on the podcast is saying, as teams as well, there's that beneficial piece around if you've got that motivation for belonging in an organisation and being part of that team, that commonality of exercise or helping communities or whatever it is, that really can drive that engagement within the workplace as well. Is that how does that feature in terms of your work?
Well, we know from the motivations everybody's motivated differently, aren't they? So you've got to find your fix, haven't you? You've got to find what gets you up in the morning and what makes you tick. For me, freedom and independence means if I go out for a run, I'm free, I'm independent, I can do what I want, I can run where I want, and I get great ideas when I'm out running. So I love a bit of independence. Personally, and I'm very creative, so that gets the creative juices going for me. And then I love to have value. So I'm the top of Maslow, I suppose, really. Right. In the fact that those are my three main motivators. It makes me unemployable, funny enough, but makes it good for me because it's life on my terms, and I like to bring new ideas into existence, and I do like to see those ideas making a difference.
Yeah.
So so fitness allows me to do that. It allows me to get away, break. Even when I'm playing five-a-side football, there's not much time for thinking apart from playing five-a-side football, but you're giving yourself a mental break, and also your mind's working, your subconscious is working 24/7. So I think you need that mindfulness, that time out for your brain to catch up and to process stuff away from just doing it 24/7. So that's why it's important to me. I see it as my mental health and how I function.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of again, this is something else that I'd spoken to other people about. Is that if change in perception or view of motivation or requirement to be motivated in a workplace for different age ranges? Your generation X, Y, Z, whatever it is coming through. Do you notice a difference when you're working with organizations around the different age groups, or is there still, and we know there's 9 motivators, of course
I'm not a big fan of pigeonholing and all those X, Y, Z. They're people at the end of the day, and they need to be motivated, and we need to find out what it is that motivates them, why they want to get out of bed, how they want to operate, how they want to work. So I'm not a big fan of, because they're Z generation, you've got to teach them, treat them a certain way. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of actually, let's find out what makes you tick and let's get you functioning. Yeah. Because I think there's too much pigeonholing these days around mental health, around all sorts of stuff that actually people go, that's me, therefore I don't need to do it, this, that, or the other. I'm kind of a bit against it a little bit. So I think if you get to the core we've in the old days you had to take it on the chin and get on with things. These days I think there's a little bit too mollycoddly people, and people getting away with a bit too much, and it's causing a lot of problems in organizations. So I think if the way to get rid of that is to build an organization where people want to join, want to come to you. They come to you for the right reasons. They can see their career path within it. You're going to support them through that and challenge them. And then you're not going to have a lot of these issues, because if they're motivated, they're not going to have mental health issues necessarily. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of that culture, that organization where people want to come to work for you or work for the organization, are there key areas that people, need to organizations need to focus on? I know you've sort of alluded to
if I talk around my wheel, so the before enablers were a visible empowering leadership, with a clear vision, engaging managers. So one of the biggest problems I think in organizations is that people are put into leadership roles and management roles without the skill sets, and then they sink or swim based on past experience. But what the impact of that on a business is mixed productivity, because people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses. And if their bosses aren't motivating them, then you're going to get inconsistent productivity. And that's a real challenge for organizations. And, so many people get put into leadership roles that are brilliant at doing other things. Like a great salesperson doesn't make a great team leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're selfish, they like to sell, and they're bloody good at it. And then they're given all these people to manage, because it's the next step in their career, and they flounder, and they haven't got the skill sets, but also they haven't got the attitude. They don't want to do it. It's forced upon them. So I think you've got to start to think about, well, how do we build a company that really does harness the full potential capabilities of our people? And that is, if you think about it logically, the first step I say is you have to have a clear story about where you've been, where you are, where you're going. Now, a lot of SMEs never tell their story. They talk about what they do and how they do it. They don't talk about, why they started it. So I get the founder of the organization to video themselves and stick it on their website, put it in their induction process, talk about why you started this organization.
Yeah.
Okay. What made you do it? What's the history of it? Where is it now? And where do you think it's going? And do that in a video, so that you'd have to be there every time, but it can be delivered to everybody who joins the organization. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you need a 3-year vision, because people joining your organization want to join an organization where it's got a good history, a good reason to join them. Secondly, they want to know where they're going. So if you've got a 3-year vision for your organization, they can immediately see where they fit, where their career path is, and how they can help achieve that vision with the organization. So they're tight, they're bought into the story, they're now bought into the vision. The next thing is that story and that vision usually stay best kept secrets. So at best the leadership team know it, but the rest of the business don't.
Yeah.
So what we've got to think about then is actually communicating it internally and externally on the website to make sure, including in induction processes and also appraisal processes, so people are reminded constantly of the story and the vision, and the customers know it and all the staff know it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a bit like, the guy at NASA with a broom. He knew he was putting a man on the moon, that kind of stuff. He knew why he was there. So that kind of stuff, understanding that. And then you start to look at engaging managers. Now, we've already spoken about that, but you want to join an organization. Think about someone joining the organization. They want to join an organization where they're going to be managed properly and respected and treated well, but also coached, motivated, and stretched. You want them to be coached, motivated, and stretched. And I talk to a lot of people in organizations, because when I do my wheel, I do it across the whole business. So let's say they've got 170 staff, everybody does it. And we'll find in the coach, motivate, and stretch, you'll get comments like, yeah, they stretch us, but they certainly don't coach and motivate us. So they push the envelope and make us work hard, but without the support. And then you're going to get absenteeism, sickness, quitting going on. So you need to coach, motivate, and stretch in equal measure. And then you've got to think about, well, what do the individual want as well? They want to be listened to. So we have to have a listening culture. So we need to understand how do people contribute. How are they made central to decision making? So that's the next thing we measure is, do you listen to your staff? Can they get involved? They're at the coalface. They know a lot of the solutions. How are you bringing them into the equation? How are you informing them, and how are you involving them? Because if you involve them, you're going to get more of them. And if they come up with an idea, or a team comes up with an idea for a solution, they're going to stand behind it. If you impose it on them, they're not. So it's a case of bottom up and buy-in. So that's the listening culture piece. And then you have to have a set. Then companies talk about their values. Now a lot of companies have values, but if you ask them what they are, they have to scamper around and find them, or they're on the wall and they walk past them every day and they cannot tell you what they are. So they're pointless values. So what you want is values that actually really mean something to you. The behaviors you want to see in the business, and then you want to catch people living and breathing those values, and there needs to be consequences and rewards for those values. So if you see if the customer is king and someone goes the extra mile, that's a great example of living our customer experience. So you need to have some measures of that. How are we living our values well? And that's all about behaviors that you expect staff to have. So when I was at Fitness First, I could have picked anybody to come and work for us because they were coming out of universities and colleges in their droves, highly skilled, technically brilliant, but that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking at how they behaved. So for a receptionist, for example, I wanted to know that she's going to make eye contact within 30 seconds of someone walking into a building. That she's going to answer the phone within 3 rings, and she's going to get a sales inquiry to a salesperson within 10 minutes so that we don't lose that piece of business. In the gym itself, I was looking, they were 16, 17-year-olds. They weren't getting paid much, £7,000 to £9,000 a year. So why were they there? They were there because it was a glamorous role, but they only wanted to talk to their mates, a lot of them. So we were testing for, can you speak to an old age pensioner? Can you speak to a pregnant lady coming back into the gym who's a bit tentative about getting on the equipment? How do you interact with the whole community, not just the people you like? So have they got those interpersonal skills and behaviors? And in the aerobic studio, I could have somebody who's technically brilliant, but boring as hell. And I didn't want that either. So we wanted entertainers. So we wanted someone who could get a class together and entertain them, get them fit. So we were looking for certain attributes and skills over and above the skill sets. So attributes and behaviors. So we were testing and looking, and those are the behaviors they were measured on, you know. And that's why we recruited, and that's what we held as our flagship behavior. So I built this all in based on my past experience and what I learned with the government task force team, and just common sense, really, to say, right, now if you think about this logically, when someone joins an organization, it has a clear story, clear vision, that's communicated well, they're going to have a great manager, they're going to be motivated, stretched, they're going to be listened to, there's going to be a set of values they buy into. And there's also, they're going to get, those values are going to be lived and breathed. And there's a big bit of research on the younger generations coming into the workplace that are not prepared to join organizations unless they have the right values. You know? So they're sitting at home. Unlike us in our day, this is the only difference between our day and today is they won't go and work anywhere because they don't have to. We had to go and get a job, and we went and got a job. They don't have to. So you've got to be a bit more discerning about attracting those people. Right. Okay. And you do it through the values. Make sure the values resonate with them, and that'll be one of the reasons they join you.
And with those sort of values piece, is that followed through with organisations now around the recruitment process, or do they go, oh yeah, we've got all these lovely values, but still we'll just revert back to the old recruitment ways? You know,
well, that's the danger. So what I do with organisations around the motivational mapping. So we talk about doing the motivational maps every quarter, so that we don't. The good thing about doing a motivational map every quarter is you're going to lose talent if you don't spot what's going on. As companies pivot and change, you either demotivate or motivate people. They don't stay the same. So spotting it early. So I did it with a law firm with 170 staff, and we spotted 5 people who were at risk of leaving, and these were key individuals in the organisation.
Hello, hope you're enjoying this episode. When you've finished, why not subscribe to the Motivational Mindset podcast to learn more about motivation in business and beyond. Thanks. Now, back to the podcast.
And the managing partner drove around, sat down with each and every one and understood their motivations and kept them in the organisation. And when I asked him how much he reckoned that had saved him, he reckoned it saved him over £1 million in lost productivity, but clients they would have taken as well. And replacement costs, because actually it's difficult to find replacements. So yes, every 90 days checking in on this stuff means you're not going, when you do changes in your organisation without realising it, people's productivity is going to increase or decrease depending on what they see.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because my background, pharmaceutical industry is absolutely loves a good reorganisation. So every 18 months, you can guarantee that all of those big firms reorganize, because generally, actually, a lot of the time it's because they've got somebody new at the top who
Yeah,
says, right, time to make my mark. But
yeah,
actually, the impact that has, in terms of the engagement and the motivation of a lot of people, it's massive. And that those people that wants the stability side of things, you know,
yeah,
they're when all this happens, they just like head completely
yeah. Well, they
goes out.
struggle with it,
Right?
and
They
I
do,
think
don't
they
they?
all, yeah, they struggle with it, and understandably. So you have to paint a picture of where you're going, hold their
Yeah,
hand, and reassure them, as you
yeah,
know. But also, I see that with some of the SME owners because they're very creative, and they have a new idea every 5 minutes, and it comes down the tube, and the staff go, "Here's his latest crazy
yeah,
idea,"
yeah,
and there's no buy-in to it. So it's about learning how. For business owners, it's tough because as business owners, we're fast paced, we're quick,
yeah.
we don't hang around, but our staff aren't fast paced, quick, and do hang around. So we're the opposite. So we have to be slowed down, get our ideas, but actually bring the naysayers in, which will be the defender type profile to say,
Yeah.
look, this is why I think it won't work. So any transformation team, bring in your naysayers. You won't want them there, but they'll be the best people to convince. And if you can convince them to do it, you can convince the business to do it.
Yeah.
So a bit, just slow down because people you're working at a far too fast a pace for them to cope with and to embrace. So
I love that. I love that. That pace piece is really,
yeah,
really interesting. I think, a lot of people can sort of connect with that a lot. But unfortunately, when you're in it, you don't realize in terms of your own
no.
pace. So
Well,
actually,
it's mad. It's mad. Change is mad because if you have an idea, it's a great idea, and
yeah.
let's implement it. But reverse that. If it's not your idea and someone's imposing an idea on you,
Hmm.
you resist it. So you've got the yin and the yang, and you've got to understand that actually you might think it's a great idea, but actually, what's the benefit to them? Are they going to have to work harder now, longer?
Yeah.
Is it going to benefit them anyway? And if it's not, and they're happy with the way they work, it's not going to happen. It's going to fall apart, and you need your people to take an idea to market. You can't do it by yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, you just got to think, people are the reason your business is as a success or a failure, it depends on your people because
Yeah.
your people are your business. So understand how they tick, make sure that when you introduce ideas, you involve them, but also that they embrace them.
Mm.
Um, you talk about those individuals that don't like change. A very simple terminology I use is actually, we're not going to change anything here. We're going to improve things. And just
Yeah.
by the word improvement, people
Yeah.
go, oh, we're not changing. We're just, oh, well, I can help improve.
Yeah.
I don't want to change, but I can help improve. And they're doing exactly the same thing. It's just a terminology.
Interesting, yeah, because I was speaking to Bevis Moynan on
Yeah,
the and he was talking about that from that sort of NLP point of view and the
yeah,
language piece as
yeah,
well, and that impact on the motivation of individuals. Exactly, great example there as well. So simple use of a different word can make all the difference in terms of people's connecting with that idea and
yeah,
moving forward with it. So yeah, that's a nice little one to take away from today's one. Definitely, I think so that's a
yeah,
good way to go. So in terms of your engagement wheel,
yeah.
is that something that people can
Yeah,
see,
they can do.
can get
Yeah, they
involved
can.
in?
Yeah, it's free. It takes 2 minutes to do.
Okay.
It's very quick and easy. I can send you a link after this, and you can send it out and they can do
Yep.
it.
Perfect. Okay.
And then if they're curious enough, they can buy the book that goes with it. So it's up to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Sure.
But the wheel will give them an instant report on their phone or which app they use
Yep.
as to where they sit, where the areas they need to focus on, basically.
And that's them as an individual, or
Yeah. So
yeah.
so you got to remember it's a perception tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'll sit. When I sat down with that law firm, I did it with 170 staff. Everybody had different perceptions, but that was great because
Yeah.
actually certain parts of the business were more engaged with the business, and certain parts of the business were less engaged.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
And also perceptions from different teams because they all got different team leaders and stuff.
Hmm.
So it was very interesting to see, and it created really healthy debate on the tables. Right, why did you score that one high and I scored it low? Well, I've been here for 10 years. I know the story. You've been here 5 minutes. You don't, for example.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got a shit manager. I've got a good manager.
It could be as simple as that, can't it? And it's really
Yeah.
interesting from that departmental siloed nature of a lot of organizations as
Yeah.
they start to get bigger and bigger. it's almost as if they are operating in as independent companies under
Yeah,
the
well, they
same
are.
name.
They're siloed, aren't they? And
Yeah,
they talk about the law firms. Family law is,
yeah,
or conveyancing makes no money, so therefore they're second class citizens. Well, they're not. They're not second class citizens. They're just
yeah,
doing a job that you don't want to do, which is important to the law firm.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so and it's all driven by money in law firms and charging and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so therefore the fee earners get all the kudos, and
Hmm.
there's no cross selling because there's no interest in them cross selling because it doesn't make them any money.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah,
So you
yeah,
get all this stuff to deal with, and you go,
yeah,
right, come on, you need to provide a united front. We're all here, we're all contributing to this business in different ways. Without the support, you wouldn't be able to do your job. So recognize these people who support you.
yeah,
Family law could cross sell you anytime they want, but
yeah,
they won't whilst you're arrogant. So
yeah,
don't bother being arrogant, but they
yeah,
won't cross sell you.
yeah.
So it's sorting out the people, sorts out the business,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. And so that's interesting as well, because a lot of the law firms are still within that sort of partnership setup.
Yeah.
Do you see that being the way the organization is set up? Does that have an impact in terms of that sort of engagement piece across from your experience?
Yeah,
Do
I still,
limited companies have a better engagement score versus others, or is
well,
it not that apparent?
I suppose we're picking on law firms a bit here, but they are a
Yeah,
bit archaic and they've been around 130 odd years,
yeah,
some of them, and
yeah, yeah,
stuff like that. So they're
yeah,
set in their ways and they have their policies and procedures and way they do things. So it's harder for them to change
yeah. Okay.
rather than a young, upcoming SME that actually doesn't have all that baggage
Hmm.
to deal with. Um, and I think limited companies I think I think they're more agile, I'd say.
Hmm.
They can be agile to a certain size. When you get beyond 50 or maybe even on 100, beyond 100 staff, you have to have
Hmm.
systems and processes. You have to have leadership teams, and you change this from an entrepreneurial business to a business owner who has to have a leadership team, and they're dealing with fast growth. They need systems and processes.
Hmm.
Um, so the whole energy of a business beyond 50 to 100 staff is different to an entrepreneurial business where they're growing and it's very exciting. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you do see that.
Yeah, and okay, so in terms of this is where I get your crystal ball out and Steve,
Yeah.
and find out where are we going? What are we all going to be sat at home and nobody's going to have a job and we're all going to be demotivated because we've been taken over by AI and all of that stuff. How do you see that? Does that motivate
Well,
you in terms of the opportunity, or do you go, oh,
yeah, I think well, you've got to, I've got people who are resisting AI at the moment, and I'm saying, well, you daft because it's coming and it's not going away,
yeah,
and you're going to fall behind. AI, if you're smart, get ahead of it and utilize it. Like the book I've just written, decided to write on the 1st of January, and it was in Amazon store on the 17th of March. Now, I used AI to help me, and it
yeah,
wouldn't have happened that quickly if I hadn't used AI.
yeah,
And it was brilliant because I could get AI to write the chapter, and then I just tweak it, change it,
hmm,
move it around a bit, and it's my chapter.
yeah,
So I think we have to embrace AI, and I think that the systems and processes now AI will run systems and processes. So if you're a business that designing your own systems, and I've got I'm a trustee of a diabetes research wellness forum, and now
okay, yeah,
the head of the MD's a brilliant woman, works really really hard, but she doesn't actually know anything about AI right now,
hmm,
and she spends her whole weekend writing proposals.
yeah,
Right now, I said to her, "You don't need to do that anymore. AI will write the proposal for you, and it'll be better than what you can do, with all
hmm,
due respect." And she's blown away with it. She said, "That's my whole weekend back, you know." And it takes about 7 minutes. All I've got to do is give it the information.
yeah,
So I think the answer is you've got to use AI to your advantage.
hmm,
Sure, I think there are going to be job losses for sure, but there's going to be job creation as well, I think.
yeah,
So, and it's not going to go away. So you have to work out. I mean, it is quite dangerous because one of the things when I wrote the first book I wrote, Turning on the Profits tab, was how relevant are you? Is the R
yeah,
in the profits tab,
yeah,
and the relevance. There's going to be no taxi drivers someday
yeah,
soon because
yeah,
cars will drive themselves. There'll be no accountants because it will be done on an app.
yeah,
It'll just require a wet signature.
yeah,
Okay, so we've got to look at what's coming and constantly ask us. I mean, my industry, you're my industry. The university now charges £9,000 a term, I think it is.
yeah,
You can sit at home and get the best people in the world on YouTube to teach you what the university is going to teach you.
Yeah.
So so why would you go to a university? So we have to be aware that it's coming
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be disruptive. And how can we get ahead of it?
Yeah.
Because if we can embrace it and get ahead of it, then we'll be okay. And it'll be great for systems and processes. It's great for lots of things that people are doing. People are doing crazy things with it at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think this is the challenge we've got. Don't in the motivational sense, don't be scared of it. Don't resist it.
Yeah.
Embrace it, because you've got no choice, really.
Yeah, and presumably you've got organisations then will have more time to focus on the people and
Well,
actually the human interaction piece.
yeah, also that, and also on their growth. The systems run the business and AI runs the business, then they can go out and they can network and they can build
Yeah.
their business and sell to people.
Yeah.
I think it is going to change at some point. I think there is going to be loss of jobs, but it's just like any revolution, the industrial revolution. Now we're in the AI revolution, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it's happening and it will change the landscape, and none of us know what it's going to look like,
No.
really and truly. But right now we're at the forefront of it, and it's quite exciting and fun to embrace. Where it ends up, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think your point around that, being able to get out and do other stuff and get out and network and speak to people is really quite interesting, because I'm sure there's probably some people listening to us going, "Oh my God, that sounds like my worst nightmare, going out and having to speak to people. What's that all about?" But I think that's also recognizing where your motivation lies and also your strengths in terms of that. Don't all have to go and do the same thing. I think that's quite clear from what the conversation we've been having here is that bespoke nature of motivation, that awareness piece that you have is critical to really.
I think so. It's another thing with that. I think if you don't like to go and talk to people, if you're introverted and you don't want to do that, this is where you've got to drop the ego and say, look, what's best for the business? Get a person who's good at it and get them out doing that networking for you, doing the public speaking, and then let them bring the work in, and then you as the MD have to run the business.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly okay to do that. When I was in Sherlaw's, one of the good things about Sherlaw's, Darren Sherlaw, he didn't really want to be up front doing the public speaking. He wanted to be out coaching. So he abdicated his role as MD and went off and appointed an MD for the business and went off coaching because he loves it. So, there's things, and it comes back to the topic we're talking about, which is motivation. That's what motivated him. That's what he loved doing.
Yeah.
And he went and did it. He designed his business so he could do it. So if we could drop the ego, work out what we're good at, put someone in who's good at going to public speaking and someone who's good at operations to run the operations, then you can still do what you love if you want to. Or you can abdicate the business altogether and have them run it for you. There's lots of things you can do.
It's very I see it quite a bit, actually. I've got a couple of organizations that I know exactly the same position. Guys set up a very small environmental contracting organization on the tools, doing the digging, routing rivers, doing all of that sort of stuff, loving it, and then it's just grown, ends up finding himself at the head of this massive beast going, I'm not happy. And it's like, right, get back in your digger.
Exactly.
Go and do whatever, or go get out on into the fields by the river, actually doing the thing that really gives you that buzz. And that also connects very, very, very quite firmly with that sort of nature piece as well. I mean, we mentioned exercise having that impact on mental health and motivation. I think that connection with nature piece as well, no matter what you do, and whether you're a tech person sat there loving your AI, actually being in connection with the world has that positive impact.
Yeah, well, it's again back to the motivations, isn't it? I wouldn't want to be on a digger all day long, but he loves it. So everybody's got their thing they want to do, and their motivations will identify that. And then when I first discovered motivational maps all those years back, I redesigned everything I did in my business.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I completely redesigned it because I was coaching and I was going out networking, trying to find individual clients. And I thought, no, actually, I'm motivated by, I like public speaking.
Yeah.
I'm good in front of audiences. I'm bad at a lot of things, but I'm good in front of audiences. So that therefore I'm going to go and find partners like law firms who can put me in front of all their clients, like accountants who can put me in front of all their clients. And I'm going to ask them to fill a room, and I'm going to give them an energy raiser at my cost. And then if people like me, they'll buy me. And I worked out that if they could get 50 people in a room, that's my sales calls done for the week. Because 4 or 5 people might come up and say, yeah, we're interested in engaging with you, which is exactly what I did when I went to the Vitality Stadium. We had about 50 people in the room and 2 of them employed me straight away. So that was my sales calls done for that week, you know. And also you're creating lots of awareness. So it fitted me, but someone who doesn't like public speaking or someone who is more introverted, that wouldn't be the route for them.
Yeah.
So I learned early on, actually, if that's what motivates me, this is the way I've got to address my business.
So, and again, this is something I think that everybody listening, you know, can really get to grips with is around this motivational piece. Is not this pink and fluffiness that you know, a lot of people think about it. Oh, and it's emotion and it's well-being and it's that stuff. And of course, it's really important. However, it's not a business thing. Absolutely is. Absolutely is, isn't it? You know,
100% is. If you're not happy, you're not going to perform well, and if it's compounded, you're going to become ill, have mental health issues. It's just going to drag. It's going to drag you down.
Yeah.
You know, and I just couldn't believe the stat when I first heard it. 1 in 3 people going to work actually were engaged in their work. That means 2/3 of the population were, and then those managers who are managing those people are managing misery.
Well, yeah.
You know, so,
reinforcing their dislike of management as well.
Yeah,
you know, it's a vicious circle, isn't it?
So, you know, and they don't have the tools of motivational map back then to work out actually what does motivate this individual, so I can harness it. So they're playing a guessing game, thinking everybody's motivated the same way they are, and they're not necessarily. And you get this kind of, well, it's not working. You know, people are leaving and stuff, you know. I don't know why, you know, well, we know why. So
yeah, absolutely.
So you kind of get, so it's fascinating. And as soon as I saw motivational maps, I just thought it's great. And the other thing that's good about motivational maps, it doesn't pigeonhole people, you know. Thank you. It means that, you know, that if you won the pools tomorrow and you're motivated by money, pools, that shows my age, doesn't it? If you won the lottery, it wouldn't matter the next day, and you'd have something else that motivates you. So we can track things, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, you know, your connection with and understanding your motivators has made a difference for you as you've moved throughout your career as well. So that's which is a fantastic, you know, thing to hear.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I understood why I left it first. I didn't understand quite why I left when I left, because I loved the industry but didn't love the business.
So from that point of view, and that brings us to coming towards the end of our little conversation here, Stephen, thank you very much for having some time for us today. Again, I ask all my guests around sort of a little bit of a tip for people out there. What's one or maybe 2 things that they can focus on in terms of their motivational mindset? And I know there's always lots and lots and lots out there, but if there's something that you guys can take away, what would that be?
Well, the first thing I said to you earlier on was actually, you know, I look at my life, I spend most of my life sleeping, the rest of it working, and I have some leisure time. So make sure what you do when you work, you enjoy. That would be the first thing. And if you don't enjoy it, don't moan about it, do something about it. Okay. That's the other thing. So I took action. I take massive action when I'm not happy in anything, and I move on to something else. So that would be the first thing. The other thing is don't listen to anybody else. Listen to yourself. Recognize how wise you actually are. And
like that. I like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's a great saying, I think Zig Ziglar said it, I'm independent of the good opinion of other people, which means people can have their opinions on you, but it's just their opinion. Don't let their opinions hold you back. You're your own person, be your own person, and believe in yourself. If you can do those things, then you're going to lose friends, but you're going to gain the friends you need. As you walk through life. That's the way I look at it. And just be, look after people, care about people. That's the other thing.
Great. Fantastic. Steve Jones, thank you ever so much for your time today. All the information about Engagement Wheel and your books will be on our bio blurb description on the podcast, so go and have a look at those if you're listening at the moment. So Steve, thank you very much.
That's been a pleasure, Richard, and thank you very much for inviting me, and I love what you do, so keep doing it.
This was a Switch Motivation production from Switch Performance Limited. Music by Dennis Kischuk from Pixabay, the Motivational Mindset Podcast. Download, listen, subscribe